Hey everybody, it's the Baseline Protocol office hours weekly show. We call the Baseline, and I still love that music. You might have noticed if you're a regular listener and watcher that we didn't have any music in the live stream intro, and there's a reason for that. Last week we got in a little trouble. I forgot to turn off the stream, and we played basically a 4-hour concert of particular favorite band song, which tripped content controls as it should. And sorry about that, YouTube. We won't do it again. So, by the way, if anybody out there is a really good musician and wants to kind of create a new sort of magic bus like audio experience that wouldn't actually put us at risk of that, that would be a fun thing to make. We might even be very grateful. And then you should NFT it and then make millions of dollars. There's an AI platform. That's right. So, yeah, so here we are. It's good to see everybody. We've got our panel of experts here. We got Jesse Lindsley. We've got Bob Gillen. We got Jack Garvin. We got Dhruv Malik. We've got Tyler McBride, Boris Breslov, Andreas Freund, Mark Haddle, our own Sam Stokes, and Nick Kritikos. We are here talking about the Baseline Protocol, and if you are new to the game, baseline-protocol.org will get you to our homepage. That's getting a refresh soon, as I understand. But the content is good as ever. Go and check out the docs. Go and check out the code on our GitHub. You can find all the links right there. And most importantly, probably get onto that Slack channel. If you click on the Slack icon in the upper right corner of that webpage, baseline-protocol.org, you will be added to the thousands of people that are in that channel. And so that's really grown. A couple of really exciting announcements, and I probably should have teed these up with links. Nick, I don't know if you've got these handy, but on the general channel in Slack, we were featured. Baseline Protocol was featured as one of the rising enterprise blockchain protocols, and the numbers look pretty impressive. We were in fact out ahead of Besu, and right neck and neck with Quorum, and and we have a year less in than all the others, at least a year less in than the other protocols. So they called us out quite nicely, and I see that the link has been posted on our.
That's a link. Yeah, that's a link to our Slack because it's in our Slack as a PDF. So it's the easiest way to share it.
Right on. And I'm just switching my microphone or my speakers here. Hold on for a second. There, that should be better. I was getting two sources of audio there. Okay, so let's discuss what do we think about that, and where do we go from there? People on YouTube, feel free to ask questions. We're here really weekly to answer questions and that might come up about confusion about how to get involved, how to implement something, put something to work. I usually put Sam Stokes on the spot to walk us through a bit of code, just because I know it drives him crazy. And so get ready, Sam. Code Don't Lie is coming. Think of something to show people. Basically just to make sure that we, you can spot entry spots, entry places. And maybe we can talk about BRI too while we're at it today. I know that Jack and Jesse and others are really into the BRI too. And we can talk about what that is for the newcomers. BRI is a baseline reference implementation. The way Baseline Protocol works is an open standard. It's not a protocol, it's not a platform, a chain, a token, a coin, a scheme, or a product. It's a standard being developed in the OASIS standards body. We intend to go to version 1 this summer on the standard, and we should have promulgated a testable standard by the new year, as well as a V1 of the associated code. The code consists of two components. One is the core, and the other are a set of reference implementations. So anybody can create a open source reference implementation of the core interfaces, and as long as it's compliant with the standard, the spec, and the interfaces. So, and you can write those with any product suite or set of components you like. The first one was written by a set of companies, including Provide and Nethermind and Nats and others, featuring those products. And now we're building a BRI2. There's also a BRI3 that I think Hedera Hashgraph was working on. I haven't seen any. It hasn't been published yet, but yeah. So you can even propose different chains to deposit your baseline proofs on, if you like, as long as again it's compliant with the standard. And the standard does not stipulate what kind of common frame of reference you use, although lots of people have opinions about which one you should. All right, that's my spiel, everybody. What do you think? Discuss. What was that old line? Talk amongst yourselves.
A plug for the public mainnet for enterprises EEA conference that is happening tomorrow. Right. If you have not signed up, please do, because there will be lots of talk about NFTs for enterprises, layer 2 scaling solutions, and Provide and ServiceNow will also showcase and discuss the baseline protocol and their implementation. So anyone who's interested, just sign up. I don't have the link handy, but just Google Enterprise, or Nick, maybe someone can find it really quick. That is that. And I just wanted to share, I had a discussion yesterday with a couple of people who were trying to help or do business development for yet another DLT based supply chain solution, and they were wondering why it is so hard to get traction in the enterprise environment, and had to disappoint them and to say, unless you're doing an arbitrage play right now, it's really rough. We're not gonna get anywhere. So it's the enterprise side is still very difficult with regard to traction, but hopefully baseline will change that.
I saw. I wonder what folks think about this. Did everybody see that DAML, DAML, which is mainly supported by Digital Asset, which was Blythe Masters' old company, was part of the originally founding crew of the Hyperledger group. They've got they got a big funding round. I mean, lots of people are getting funding rounds. I mean, Consensus just announced a pretty huge funding round as well. And the story that they told in the press release, Yuval Ruz, it sounded pretty interesting, and it looked a lot like the motives that they have seem fairly consistent with the baseline protocol community motives as well, which is verified multi-party workflow. It's not about the chains and putting data on chains and that sort of thing. What do we think about that? And should we invite them in to hang out with the baseline team?
I guess you need to ask VMware if they're cool with that. they have a big partnership with VMware. In fact, VMware blockchain that was launched like late last year, is using DAML, but also the EVM. So that's interesting.
I haven't looked at digital assets in a long time, and so I'm wondering. I mean, does this sort of quasi standards driven approach, does it require something that Digital Asset makes, or is it independent of anything that they would be offering as a
So,
product?
so a couple things. There are distribution partners, of which VMware is one, as is ChainStack, by the way. They have technology partners or ISV partners, of which Unibright is one. So maybe Stefan or Martin, our friends at Unibright, can talk about that. And then, of course, in terms of service partners or ecosystem partners, consulting partners, Accenture is one. So, and Cognizant and other groups that are actually part of this community. So maybe the representatives of this community can help us understand how it fits in and whether we should invite them in.
I tried to hire a couple of their founders once, so maybe I can give them a call. So yeah, I think we're all kind of closing in on the goal, right? Which is, we started with these various camps. I liked what one of the things that the announcement said, which was there's this false dichotomy between private and public blockchains, as it were. I certainly agree with that 100%. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if now, I mean, I'll be very encouraged when we start to see things like lots of developers that work for companies like, real traditional companies submitting EIPs to things like Ethereum, right? Then, and carrying the water on that side. I mean, at one point, I remember when I was on the Java team in the 90s at IBM, we had 2,500 developers working on Java. They weren't volunteers. We were paying them. Their day job was work on Java. Started with volunteers, like people who were just volunteering their time. They did have a day job, but it was clearly relevant to their day job. And then ultimately we wound up funding a whole division called the Java division. So when we start to see things like that, not just on Baseline or Ethereum or Hedera or whatever it is, but really on the mission of verified multi-party workflows using these new tools and techniques, I think then we're going to be onto that glide path towards convergence and a lot of activity. You don't have to push a rock up the hill.
The tooling needs to get better for that. Remember, like Java really took off once tooling got really easy to use, and it's like with everything, it's like make it easy for people to use, and then people will say, oh wow, this is really cool, I can do so many cool things much faster. As long as it's like really cumbersome, that it's going to be a sloth. So tool development for open source projects is like really important, and it's a thankless job.
Yeah, it is. But the tooling has to follow form fit for purpose, right? So if we pushed a lot of design patterns on industry over the last 5 years, I was part of some of that, where it turned out that was just not a good design pattern, right? It was not a good fit for purpose, right? And hey, let's put data on a blockchain right there. We're going to find ourselves in the weeds in the end. And so there's no point in building great tools around that because it was not a great idea to begin with. And so now I think we have approaches that make sense that CISOs and CIOs and others, security officers, can embrace and go, oh yeah, okay, we can do that. It makes sense. It's not crazy. And then the tools start to come from there. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, some of the tech still needs to be developed further and get the kinks worked out, because to build the tooling, and you really need to understand the underlying tech, and to make it easy, it's non-trivial. So that's why work that Starkware is doing, that Aztec's doing, that ZK Sync's doing is so vital for the industry, dealing with zero knowledge proofs. I mean, that's sort of like the key to broader developer adoption, because developers don't want to know what a what portion of an elliptic curve or what group you need to use in order to build a recursive snark, right? They don't care. They shouldn't care.
Yeah. Speaking of which, what are I mean, Sam, what do you think about what needs to be in BRI2 and how does that need to evolve? I mean, what are the components and what is our approach going to be for building this new reference implementation? Certainly with sort of the principle of being very accessible, very easy for a developer to get their hands on and work with, and no vendor lock-in. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so working on some better documentation right now. So that's one thing. I know Andreas has mentioned in the past having some better quick start instructions. So working towards a place where you can just run a couple commands, make build, make start, spin up the full stack that way, and then eventually need to add a kind of an integration test suite, or maybe you could run a make test command and it'll test the entire stack. But yeah, the approach we've taken so far is everything within BRI2 is open sourced. And hopefully that makes it easy for people to dive into the details and contribute if they want to. Trying to make it a modular design, so it's all microservice based, as is BRI1. But I think it would still take some effort, but hopefully you could swap in some components for other ones if you had a personal preference or like some technology. It'll still have to adhere to some common interfaces, but trying to build it such that you could kind of tailor BRI2 to your specific needs.
I think that's a good start.
John,
yeah,
on BRI2, it's myself and a few colleagues. We submitted a grant, and one of the outputs, what I hope, since we are I kind of think of us as 2.5 developers. I mean, we have a college graduate, and we have a experienced Solidity developer that did quite a bit of work in the past, and I do some development, but not a whole lot. But the output, one of them, I think, is going to be as far as the challenges that we will experience using BR2 and potentially some, I hope some, and we had a few discussions with Sam. He was very helpful, better understanding of what could be done as far as the tooling, or the execution, how it could be improved. So I think that's going to be one of the outputs that I hope we'll put together.
So for folks that are tuning in, what Boris is referring to in the grant proposal is right here. I've put the link in chat. And you can go to github.com/ethereum-oasis/baseline grants and baseline-grants. And you'll see that we've been getting real uptick in these grants, grant proposals and bounty proposals. So you can propose a bounty, you can say this is something that needs to get done, and we can make it a competition, a challenge, like a hackathon. Or you can say, I'd like to do this work, and the technical steering committee of the Baseline Protocol can vote on it. We've got $100,000 to spend before the end of the summer on these sorts of things. And so Boris, you've just entered a new proposal that we'll be looking at.
Yeah. We did it a couple of days ago.
And there's one called No Code Hello World, or not No Code Hello World. There's one called Hello World Baseline Installable Demo, which is a bounty proposal. And I just heard from one of my favorite professors, one of the professor that ran. If you've done the baseline coursework out there, you've probably done her Coursera work, or her Coursera course. As I think 300,000 people or more have attended this class, and this Bina Ramamurthy. So I've just heard from Bina that they have a proposal coming in for a piece of R&D on baselining. So things are really cooking up there, and that's really exciting. Which one of these was yours again, Boris?
The zero knowledge
right there, writing
So,
$0
yeah,
circuits.
zero knot circuits. Yeah, yeah. I
That's
mean,
fantastic.
talking about enterprise, I mean, it's. I hope we'll tackle a very small piece of of trading, or basically confirmation. I mean, it's definitely going to be a very small piece, but I hope we'll learn enough from it to kind of expand it in the future.
That's
But
terrific.
yeah, that's basically what we're looking at. Yeah.
So if you're a developer out there and you want to do this sort of thing, then you can do that. Just go to, again, baseline-protocol.org. I think the first article on the homepage there is how to get into proposing a project. And I really love the fact that we have this, because, in a lot of these kinds of standards projects and open source projects, there's a kind of a pay to play that happens, right? Some company has the money to do a lot of work. I mean, Hyperledger, we had a whole bunch of people doing work on Hyperledger Fabric. And so, they who put the work in are the, will win the day. And there are a lot of good volunteers, but there's also people that, just simply can't volunteer their time, that need to get some kind of compensation. And now we have this fund that is controlled not by any particular company, but by the community. And companies can contribute to the fund, but the decision about what gets funded is indirect from them. They don't get to decide. It's decided by the technical steering committee, which is a voted in body. So, Boris, it's really exciting to see that proposal, and we will be voting on it shortly. We meet regularly on that.
So if someone who's out there really wants to do the community a big service and know Solidity well, put in a proposal to make the smart contract system upgradable, at least following the Open Zeppelin pattern. It would be really, really helpful. I'm happy to chaperone if someone wants to do that. I'm willing to donate a little bit of time. But if someone wants to do that, that would be really, really, really good. Even though it increases the attack surface, but I think it for the enterprise requirements that are coming down the pike, this is absolutely necessary. Plus, you don't want to proliferate the it's like the same pattern, the same code again and again and again and again and again.
Yeah, if you want to, if you're a competent developer or a content developer or content writer, and you want to get a successful grant, get on our Slack, baseline-protocol.org, and click the Slack button and get in there. Grab and go ping Andreas Freund, Sam Stokes, or any of us. Can shepherd you right into, if you don't know exactly what you might want to do, Andreas will give you like 10 ideas, and Sam will tell you where to put it. There's a lot of support for you, and it's a friendly group. So you can say, hey, I don't know what I want to do yet, but I'd really like to help, and I'd really like to get one of those bounties. And just start that conversation. We're happy to help you.
Hey, Andreas, I'm curious, do you have any types of upgrades in mind for smart contracts, or are you just thinking in general for flexibility that we ought to enable that?
Well, I mean, you have different type of shield contracts, right? Shield contracts will change. You find a bug, there's and you don't want to proliferate code more than you have to, right? It's like, yeah, you can say monolithic stack is more secure, right? It's a trade-off, right? In the end, you'll have to manage hundreds or thousands of instances over time. So the question is, what are your trade-offs in terms of security versus manageability versus flexibility, right? What I see from enterprises coming, oh, I want to be able to upgrade and migrate and blah blah. What happens then, right? Because that's what they're used to, right? So they will ask that, and if you say, well, we can't really do that, then that's a insufficient answer. Let's to put it mildly.
Yeah, I think one of my concerns is who would have the ability to upgrade a contract if you're working with a shared Shield contract, who within the work group kind of has
Yeah,
that.
see, that's exactly the point. It's like you have there's an operator and there's permissioning, so certain groups can update their own contracts, and that's exactly where upgradability meets permissioning, right? And that needs to be done very, very carefully, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to throw all organizations in one contract, right? Because if you're kind of like telling Coca-Cola, oh, by the way, your stuff is also in the stuff with like Pepsi, they're gonna go like, WTF?
Yeah.
Right? So it's just, even though it's like, technically speaking, it doesn't really matter, but just from a psychological point of view, it's just
let's talk about that, Andreas. I mean, one of the things I like about this approach is how compartmentalized it is, and that there may be a reason for some workflow involving Coca-Cola and some work and Pepsi together might be in that same workflow, but except for the records that they particularly need to share, or the the workflow steps that they particularly are involved in, being part of that workflow isn't going to really tell you anything that you're not supposed to know. Unlike, say, if you were all in, say, Hyperledger Fabric channel, or in some private blockchain together, that like a Quorum blockchain, you're going to see activity that is going to give away some secrets if you're in that group, if you have access to those nodes. But in this case, it's not much you're going to see. You're just going to know, yeah, I've got a record in my database that I can be confident is the same record as this guy's, right?
Yes and no. So unless these companies are going to operate their own baseline stack, sort of like they're operating it that in silos with their trade partners.
Oh yeah. Oh no, that you're exactly right. If there was some kind of,
if you have
a bunch of
third-party
companies
operator,
decided to hire an operator and run a stack that in common, I don't think that would be an advisable thing to do.
Why not? It's like the operator can't do anything, and it's going to be cheaper if you're running. It's like the same thing. It's like, oh, you want to run your own ERP, and then they're like, initially it was like, yeah, sure, and then they're like, not really, right?
Well,
it's
I might have a SaaS product, but presumably that SaaS product is I might be a customer of a SaaS product. The SaaS product is baselined. It has a stack enabling itself to be baseline. But for everybody to use, to say, oh, well, if you want a baseline, you have to be on this SaaS, this universal SaaS thing. I think that would be not a good. I mean, you could do it, but I don't know what the.
No, you have multi-tenancy.
Huh?
No, yeah, you have multi-tenancy from an architecture point of view, but on chain, right? It's like how much complexity do you want to manage as an operator? That's the
Well, if I'm a customer of a ARAP system, a SaaS ARAP system, I'm not managing any complexity at all. But now I've got features in that experience that I wouldn't have gotten if that platform was not baseline enabled.
Right, but the point is, enterprises prefer third parties so that they have a throat to choke, that they can sue, and they can throw someone else under the bus if things go sideways, right? Unless there's a significant regulatory considerations, you want to because it's not core, right? It's not part of their core. It's not part of their core competency, right? So why should they run it? Why should they operate it? Why should they have to worry about instantiation for every single of their trade partners. If they have 10,000, then they're like, oh, I need to manage 10,000 smart contract systems and stuff like that. So the people who would then have to manage that are going to go to their CIO and says, dude, this is going to get like slightly out of hand, right? Because it's not as easy as managing a SQL database with a million records, right? So
well, it
that's
is, right? It is. It's not. I mean, nothing's easy, but things are straightforward. You're managing your SQL database, and some of those records are have a little mark on them saying, "Yeah, I'm baselined."
yeah, no,
so,
that's not the problem. It's you're managing every single smart contract system on Ethereum is its own instance that you need to manage. You need to manage the keys, you need to manage the transactions, and they need to all the transactions that are coming down the chute, right, need to go to the right place. That means I need to manage and maintain those instances, make sure that this is properly
so that's
properly done.
I think those are clues to some really a whole bunch of products that somebody could be building for people. Hey, Lucas
Right.
Rodriguez and Jack Leahy just joined. It's good to see you guys. Chris Corson and Tim Coleman just joined as well. So that's nice to see you all. Sam, did you want to do a dive into BRI2, show people around where it is, what's in it?
I certainly can.
Okay, I'll give you some time by doing our slam transition. Yes, it's Code Don't Lie time again. Sam Stokes, you want to? I think you have control over the screen.
Okay. Can you see the web browser on my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, still, these are the baseline examples. I've been doing most of my work within BRI2. So in the past week or so, since we were last on this show, I've been working on the ZKP manager service. So that's one component within kind of the BRI2 baseline stack.
What's it do, Sam?
Yeah, it's basically responsible for compiling zero knowledge circuits and then generating zero knowledge proofs and verifying those proofs.
So if you think about a particular deployment, what would if I was building an application or a solution, where am I going to employ that?
Where would you employ it?
Is it, by the way, is this on your branch, or is this if somebody wanted to look for this, is this on a particular branch, or is this? No, this is in master. Okay, this is in main. Is that I thought we switched that to main. It should say main now. Anyway, go ahead.
Where would I employ it? I'm not sure. I mean, it's one component that you would kind of deploy with the entire BRI2 stack.
Sam, maybe it would be helpful to show what are the workflow manager services that are being called and what they do, right? Because I'm sure you have abstracted that out as services that can be managed by controllers, right? From other modules.
Managed by controllers. I'm not sure.
Well, it's like you have routes, you have controllers, you have services, right? So there's and you have services in a module, and they're exposed, right? Either they're exposed through a route, right, or internally, or they're directly or they're direct service you can call because it's a module that you have exported that is now as part of an SDK, right? So right. So to speak. So I presume, I haven't looked at it, but that the ZKP manager also has either routes or an SDK that exports the modules that you can call by the workflow manager, for example, right? Looks like from here, the workflow manager is
Connect CKPS, yeah.
yeah, is the guy who or the gal who's doing the ZKP, calling the ZKP. So that it might be helpful for people to see how that actually works and what the integration is, just as an example how the modularization works and how things are set up.
Yeah, yeah. So you're right. The ZKP manager has some RESTful endpoints where you can request certain actions. I can show you the different routes it supports in a minute. So it has that method of communication, and then also there's some internal messaging. So kind of our two options that we're looking at for the internal kind of job queuing service is either NATS or Codify Orchestrate is a consensus product that uses Kafka internally. So,
and I think one of the things that we should probably point out there is that, you know, one of the things that BRI2 is going to be constructed around is the notion of no vendor lock-in, right? So it'll be really easy to show in the cookbook to say, oh yeah, I can snip off this and put something else in, and it'll be easy, fairly easy to do. And you know, you're not going to be bound into any particular stack, right?
yeah, that's the goal. Make it, I mean, you know, we have to define the interfaces, and then kind of the microservice behind that can, it could be substituted and maybe process those requests differently, but it's got to still speak the same language that we're trying to define through the interfaces.
Right on.
But yeah, for the ZKP manager in particular, show you the routes. These are all the routes that it supports. So those are just traditional HTTP requests. And for this service, I do have a Postman collection. So if you wanted to, you can import this JSON file into your Postman application, and it'll kind of pre-populate all those requests, so you don't have to build them from scratch. So the next step for this would probably be to build a automated test suite as well. But this Postman collection allows you to at least test out individual routes kind of in a slightly more manual way.
What you just said about automated test suite, that sounds like a task that ought to be in the issues list. Is that in there, or should we take a note to create that issue in the repo?
I think it's mentioned here in kind of a high level epic, but there's not a detailed issue kind of explaining the step-by-step process there. So,
well, hey, developers out there, there you go. There's your opportunity to make a contribution. There's a nice discrete piece of work to help out with and distinguish yourself on. And heck, maybe you can even write a bounty or a grant on it, and you know, we'll pay you some money for it.
Yep. Yeah. So that issue is kind of the anybody who's interested in contributing to BRI2. These are all the tasks I'm trying to kind of keep.
That's issue number 320. If people can't read it on their screen, right? Issue 320 in the baseline repo under issues. Yep.
Yep. So just kind of a running to-do list that I'm trying to maintain, organize my thoughts, but welcome anybody that wants to contribute and try to knock out some of these tasks. That would be awesome.
There's a raft of people entering on this. And I know the Jack and team, you guys are getting geared up on this. I think Parth and Dhruv and others have been poking around on this. And I know we're hiring a ton of people right now who will focus on BRI2. So that's all good.
Sam, quick question. For the proof verification, can you remind me, because my brain's not working properly? You're doing the verification on chain, right? You can call a direct endpoint.
Yeah. So that ZKP manager service is a wrapper around NARC, which is a zero knowledge library written in Golang. But yeah, this service would support verification off chain, but it also has a feature where you can export a Solidity contract that can act as the verifier on chain as well. So I think we're kind of moving towards a design where we would probably leverage both off-chain and on-chain verification.
Hey, you know,
Yes.
are you guys peaked on that, Sam? Is there something else you want to show? Because something came up on the chat there. I'd like to bring up.
Yeah, sure. No,
Are
I'm
you
done.
good? Was anything else that we should be doing? I mean, we have been doing this every week, and I think it's for me, it's the most satisfying part of the conversation. Is you know, I think it's important that newcomers get to hear the story every week, and what they need to know. But it's most satisfying when we get down into the code. But so we'll just keep doing that, Sam, and I think appreciate that a lot from you. Michael Forrest out there on the chat says, is there a Chainlink sort of a secret network Enigma NPC value add? And it happens, Drew, I think you might have some comments about this. I was really excited to see Chainlink entering some real productive work right now on the baseline protocol, because we've matured to the point where we really need an Oracle service to go to the next level. Do you want to talk about that at all, or we can punt to another week?
Yeah. So just a quick point for Chainlink, I think they have released their new version, which is kind of more decentralized. So I think, and also the fact, like currently this week, I'm participating in a hackathon organized by Ethereum Foundation, which is only on implementing solutions on layer 2, and Chainlink is also the participant. So yeah, I will be happy to try to implement baseline, like another stack, or discuss more about this topic.
Yeah, and there'll be documentation, and yeah, there's going to be a component entering in that in the standard that will define how the rules by which we allow for exogenous data, especially dynamic data, to be inserted into a business process, right? So if you and I both, if we're baselining a record, and the logic says we both have to look up a time, let's just make it simple. Your machine's going to look up a time. If we allowed you to look up a time locally on your local time service, and I did the same thing on my machine, almost certainly they're going to be different times, and that could break. Now you have a non-determinism problem. So Chainlink obviously has a real strong dog in the hunt about being the marketplace for and allowing making sure you have determinism in your parameters, right? So you can say, well, I've got a zero knowledge circuit. It's got to take these parameters. Some of these parameters need to be the same value, even though if you don't do it right, you could get different values. Stock prices are obvious examples. Anything that moves around and different machines can read differently within the same function that has to agree with itself. That's not only a generalized problem for blockchains, it's a specific problem for any workflow that involves that kind of data in a baseline process. Right. So that's a really good, clean opportunity for Chainlink to make a difference in the community. And we're really glad that they've assigned engineering and documentation resources to building that now. So that should be something we're seeing in the summer. Thanks, Drew. Anything else? Anything else where anybody's like to burn in to talk about today? I'm back to back all the way to like nighttime today, so I'm happy to end early. Going once, Tim Coleman. Going twice, Lucas. Lucas, you've always got good things to say. You got anything you want to talk about today, or you want to wait till next week? All right. Going once, going twice. Everybody, it's great to see you all. We'll take it out on some music that we hope we don't get in trouble for.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Baseline.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.